Welcome to the Edistar Talks podcast, where we invite some amazing educational rock stars who lives to inspire and loves to encourage. Hosted by an educator, facilitator at the Edtech coach, Sumedha Sodhi. In this show, we will discuss about how educators can amplify student engagement, shake up learning, and can rock the curriculum content with 21st century skills. So if you are looking for ways to rock your class, stay tuned with us and be the never to be forgotten. Dr. Maria Lice Curran is a Hello everyone, welcome to the episode 12 of Edu Rockstar Talks podcast. And today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Craig Kemp. He is the founder and host of Ignite Ed podcast. And I have been following Mr. Craig for quite a long time. So I'm so excited to chat with Mr. Craig. He is a well-known and respected keynote speaker, workshop host, and global education consultant. Mr. Craig is a leader in the field of ICT and Edtech and works with departments, ministries, school leadership, school communities, and educators to understand, design, and implement digital learning solutions and transformations to improve teaching practice and student learning outcomes. Welcome, Mr. Craig, to Edu Rockstar Talks podcast. It's my privilege to have you on my podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me, Samita. I really appreciate it. It's exciting to be here, and I can't wait to chat a little bit more with you.
Thank you so much. So I request you to kindly tell us something about you, what you have been doing, and what you are doing in the field of education to our audience today.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm originally from New Zealand, but I moved to Singapore about 10 years ago now, so a long time. I've been working in education for over 16 years as a teacher and a leader. And my last role in a school was the Director of Technology and Innovation at a large 3,200 student American international school here in Singapore. Now I run my own consultancy company called Ignite Edtech. You would have heard my podcast, the Ignite Edtech podcast, and I support schools and edtech companies all over the world to be successful and thrive with their use of technology in their schools. I now also run my own startup called EduSpark, which launches soon in the middle of August and will support teachers and leaders from all over the world to connect and engage with the highest quality of professional learning for a low price. It's an incredible professional learning resource that you shouldn't miss. I'm pretty excited about it too. And you can actually learn more at eduspark.world. And I can't wait to bring that to the world soon with some pretty amazing voices being shared in there as well.
Wow, that is such an inspirational introduction. I'm really impressed with the kind of work you are doing in the field of education. Hats
Thank
off
you.
to you.
Thank you so much.
So, as the topic for the today is the power of EdTech, so I would like to start with a quote. Technology will not replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. And this is the topic that we are going to discuss today with Mr. Craig. And the first question to you, Mr. Craig, is that what do you think is the power of EdTech? And especially in the virtual learning environment where everyone is moved onto the learning platforms. What do you think is the power of EdTech in virtual learning?
Yeah, very good question. And I love the quote, by the way, as well. For me, it's simple. Technology allows us to connect, engage, and learn in ways that were previously inconceivable. Imagine going through this without the use of technology. And I know some people have had to go through that, but technology just helps us embrace new ways to learn. So the power of EdTech for me in this space, particularly online, is that we can connect, engage, relate, and learn things from others that we could never do before. We can learn, we can create learning opportunities, and we can engage with people all over the world at any time. And that to me is the power. It gives us the power to connect.
Yes, very rightly you mentioned about the importance of edtech in the learning environment to create the digital smart future citizens.
Yes.
Now, technology alone is not going to improve student achievement, and the best combination is that great teachers working with technology engage students in the pursuit of learning that they required. So, what do you think that COVID-19 has classified the educators into different categories? So, what are these categories according to you?
Yeah, good question. So I agree that it's all about human resources in schools, by the way, as well. Technology can add value to learning, but it's a tool that we should add to our toolkit. It's a way of creating better opportunities. And it's us as teachers and leaders that can do that. So, my work over the past 18 months has seen me work with multiple schools in multiple countries all over the world. And, in that work, I've been able to identify and work with hundreds of teachers, if not thousands of teachers. And one of the things that it's been interesting for me to do is sort of classify them into categories. So thinking about, how has COVID impacted people in their learning? And for me, I put teachers into three categories. One is teachers who thrived. Probably you listening to this podcast, the 10% of people that went out there, they gave it a go, they tried new things, they took risks, and they did an amazing job. Then probably 70% of us or 80% of us who's just survived. We just hung on. We tried new things, but it was risky, it was challenging. We pushed through those boundaries, but we're still here and we're still doing amazing things today. And then the last category, 10, 15%, 20% of people who just gave up. It was too much for them. They left teaching, they stopped teaching, they moved away from technology, too much of a hassle, too much new stuff to learn, too much stress, and it sort of pushed them in a way that didn't allow them, to keep doing things in the best possible way.
Yes, very rightly. I think it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives, but it is the one that is the most adaptable to change, that thrives in all the kinds of changes which are taking place. And you are yourself such a tech pro person. I also started using technology in my classroom during the COVID pandemic because it's not a buzzword or it was a trend. I started using it because connecting with my students and with the world to prepare them for the future was important, and then I realized the power of edtech. So the next question I would like to ask is that do you think too much technology around us is causing some stress among educators?
Yeah, good question again. Yes, I do. I think stress is caused when we get taken to an unknown or an unfamiliar scenario. And for many of us, that was using technology in a virtual space. And it made us feel uncomfortable and it pushed our boundaries. And that's how I categorize the teachers that I talked about before. And the ones that gave up was often because of stress. But to me, it's not too much technology that's caused that. Yes, there has been a lot thrown at us, lots of free opportunities and tools and opportunities, but it's up to us to choose the right tools. So really, if we're getting stressed out by too much technology, it's on us because we're the ones that can pick and choose what we use for the right purpose to change the learning in our classrooms. So if we want it to push us over the edge, we can. If we want to ignore things, that's how we can avoid that stress element as well. So I think it's a matter of personal choice and preference, but making choices that reflect the opportunities that each teacher has when it comes to technology.
Yes, excellent thought. And at the heart of effective technology integration, technology offers various opportunities to be more actively involved in the learning experience. So, in that way, Why do you think it is important to talk about SAMR model in learning?
Yeah, so the SAMR model was developed by a guy named Ruben Puttendera. And Ruben Puttendera created the SAMR model as a way to support the way we think about using technology in our schools. It's a ladder. People look at it, it looks like a ladder, but Ruben says, it's not a ladder, but it's a way of thinking about technology and how to use it to create better learning experiences. So at the bottom of this diagram, it's S, which is substitution. It's a way of moving from a textbook to a Google Doc, for example, and it's a way of, I guess, just substituting for something that you used to use that doesn't really make any functional change to a technology tool. The second part is augmentation. It's a direct tool substitution, but it improves some functionality a little bit. Then we get into the real transformational part of the SAMR model. M and R. For M, it's modification. So this is where we use technology to significantly redesign a learning experience, to change something or modify it in some way. And then the redefinition part is the desirable part, the part where we want to be if we can. And it's all about creating something that was previously inconceivable, doing something that was different, that completely transforms learning. It's moving from not using technology to trying to use technology in ways that are going to engage students in learning, finding out new things, engaging in new opportunities. So, let's put it into an example that everyone will be able to sort of understand. It's using a textbook for writing. I can write in a textbook or in a book, but is there any really solid learning that's happening there if it's not rote learning? Can I create and engage in any ways? Can I connect? Can I share? Not really. So, to substitute would be, let's use Google Docs and we'll do our writing there. There's no real change, but people are typing. They're putting things into a document. But if we wanted to augment that or modify that, we can add some functionalities to that. We can do things like, hey, let's let the students peer assess each other and give each other feedback in here by typing some ideas in. Let's let the teacher give feedback too, so it's more instant. Let's help students who are having trouble with grammar or with spelling to be able to use those tools to be able to support them and integrate those in. Let's use built-in tools like the ability to search and upload images and make things a little bit more exciting. And then when we look to redefine the experience, we're trying to do things that were previously inconceivable. So in this scenario, it might be using tools like Floop or Mote to add to this Google Doc, where we can start adding verbal feedback to this and allowing students to engage in that process. So for me, the SAMR model is a way of thinking, and it should be something that every teacher and every school thinks about before they plan learning experiences.
Oh, thank you for explaining the SAMR model in such a easy and nice way. It's really appreciating. And do you think that educators are sometimes confused about which edtech tool to use and map those edtech tools with their learning outcomes? So, how can they use edtech to create experiences that transform learning?
Yeah, another great question. I think it's something that all schools, every country, all around the world have trouble with, and that's, really choosing the right tools for the right learning. And I think, educators can use technology to create experiences that actually transform learning if they use technology to add value, to learning, not just substitute it. So how can you add value? If you're not doing something that's different or changing the learning experience in some way, then don't do it. You need to create experiences that get students to create and think differently. Use technology to connect them to the world. Teachers should be learning, in my mind as well. I'm thinking about that from a student perspective, but from a teacher's perspective, we need to constantly be connected to be better, and we need to learn from the best. And we need to learn with the best, and we need to be connected. We need to be connected on social media and share things online. And that's why we created EduSpark. As a teacher or a leader in a school, EduSpark's going to be able to provide people with the opportunity to connect, engage, and learn, develop, grow, with the best of the best from all over the world. And you can sign up for free updates at eduspark.world. We'll be launching in the middle of August, so it's a perfect opportunity for you to jump in, uh, get an understanding, sign up for our updates, and we'll be sharing more about the benefits of EduSpark for a teacher's professional learning over the coming weeks.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you for telling our audience about your new venture, that is EduSpark World. I think educators around the world would be eagerly waiting for the launch of your platform, and they will be so happy to connect with it because learning is something which never ends. Even after so many years of experiences into teaching, I feel that a teacher has to be a learner at a heart. And each person holds so much power within themselves that needs to let out. And sometimes they just need a little nudge, as you have mentioned, and a little direction, a little support, a little coaching, and the greatest things can happen. I think the EduSpark world will be that greatest thing which will happen for the educator community. All the best for your new venture. So, keeping in mind the skills and the SAMR model that you just explained, what, according to you, are the top five skills that will be required by the students and that EdTech can inculcate among the students?
Yeah, I love using a graphic from the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report that was released at the end of 2020. They share this image that from their thousands and thousands of points of research show the top 10 skills for learners in 2025. It goes through all sorts of things that our kids are going to need to be successful in the future. And they say, we can't predict the future beyond 3 or 4 years because technology changes so fast, and it affects the world we live in. So for me, and definitely keeping in mind COVID and the battles that we've had to go through, for me, it's number one, resilience. I think it's important for our kids to be resilient in their learning. It's important for them to be resilient in everyday life and be able to push through um, boundaries and things that are pushed in their way. Other skills that I think are really important: creativity, analytical thinking, problem solving, and probably for me something that's been the most valuable in my career that I hope other learners and young learners and teachers from all over the world as well, actually. But one of the things that I want people to be able to understand the power of is being connected and connecting to opportunities. So it's connecting online, it's connecting to friendship groups, it's connecting via social media, it's sharing in person, it's the ability to connect and engage with friends, with colleagues, with leaders, with people that you don't normally get to connect with. So that's where technology provides us with a way of developing a skill that we couldn't really do as much of in the past.
Yes, indeed. Connection is the new buzzword, especially in the new normal of the teaching environment that we are having around us. So, if higher education is changing, as you have mentioned, and the technology that support it also needs to change as well. Both of the technology and the education has to go time to time, and they have to keep on innovating. So, in this constant time of change, how important it is to learn to unlearn.
Yeah, I love the idea of learning to unlearn. Futurist and philosopher Alvin Toffler says the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So for me, this whole idea of unlearning something so we can relearn is critical for every person, whether you're 70 or 80 years old and you've just gone through a COVID situation, you need to learn how to live in the new normal, or you're a 2-year old or a 3-year old learning things and unlearning every day. Our toddlers do this the best, and Samita, we talked about this. We've got kids of similar age, and our kids are at the age of 3, they're making mistakes. I love watching the way kids learn. Unfortunately, we lose that as we grow up. And for me, this whole idea is really important. Things change so fast that if we don't keep up, we get left behind. So we have to unlearn, we have to move away. One of the most abused phrases I think, by educators is the whole idea of I've always done it that way. And we need to move beyond that because this world is very different every single year and we need to continue to adapt and change.
Yes, definitely. And how do you think this mind shift can be created among the stakeholders?
Yeah, I think it's all about people. For me, technology is a tool. It's all about people. So, number one, build confidence in people, build capacity in people, encourage the idea of sharing within your community. Encourage the idea that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to try new things. That we shouldn't be defined by a mistake we make. We don't enforce that on our kids. We don't want that in the world we live in. So why do we do it to our teachers? We need to build a culture where technology is positive and it can help us, create a community and a strategy to change. That's what's important. We need to move to a place where we can start implementing this change, being positive about that change, and then sharing it, no matter how big or how small. So to me, it comes back to the culture in your school building around the way you use technology.
Yes, indeed. I also believe that teachers need to integrate technology seamlessly into the curriculum instead of viewing it as just an add on or an afterthought or just as an event. So, in the COVID 19, a lot of teachers had many challenges with technology, and they are learning technology even now through a series of webinars and various web portal. So, what a post-COVID action plan do you suggest to our audience today to adopt to the new normal of teaching and learning?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, it's all about working together and building that culture. So that's where that post COVID action plan has to start. It has to start with you. No one's going to hand this to you on a silver platter. You've got to work together and you've got to build that culture where people want to learn, want to try new things, and want to make mistakes. In your school, you need the right tools, but more importantly, you need the right people with the right attitude. So we need to build confidence. We need to create learning experiences. We need to have sharing sessions. We need to continue to learn from the best. That's why I mentioned EduSpark. Push boundaries, try new things, share them out to a community, a professional learning network. And most importantly, in your school, make sure that they have opportunities to try new things. They have opportunities to unlearn and, of course, relearn.
Okay, great strategies you have shared with our audience today. And what do you suggest how educators can build these capacities in the field of edtech, especially? Please suggest some strategies for our audience for that also.
Yeah, good question. I think there's probably three that come to mind. Number one is stay connected on social media. Connect, engage, learn. Twitter for me has been a game changer. That's where I go to do all of my learning. LinkedIn, Facebook groups. Share with people, connect and engage. I think it's all about um, you know, being aware that there's a lot of people wanting to learn from each other. So jump on board there. The next part is, connecting and sharing in your own school. So having opportunities to share, doing classroom walkthroughs, seeing what other people are doing, and building confidence step by step. And then, of course, I think there's these platforms that allow us to connect and engage, like EduSpark. And I'm sorry to keep mentioning it, but it just comes up. But one of the ways for me is learning with others and connecting into communities, and that's what we do. So I guess that's for me is how you build capacity.
Oh, wow. Thank you for suggesting those strategies. I think our audience are really going to get benefited out of that. And if our audience would like to connect with you more, and as you said, we have to develop our presence in the social media. So kindly let our audience know where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, you can find me on most social platforms. I'm most active on Twitter, but you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn by finding Mr. Kemp NZ, MrKempNZ for New Zealand. And you can search for Ignite Edtech, which is my company. On any of those pages, you can visit igniteedtech.com. And of course, you can go to eduspark.world as well. And I'm sure that you'll provide those links for people as well to make it easy for you to find it. But it's a very easy way to find me as well.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that information. Now, I would like to request you to share one last motivational message for our audience today before we say goodbye.
Yeah, it's I always come back to Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek to me is one of the most motivational people in the world. He doesn't just say things, he actually actions them. He walks the walk. He doesn't just talk the talk. So when he says, my favorite statement from him is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And for me, it's about you choosing, and I use this all the time in both my personal and professional life. Think before you do something and justify why you're doing it. You know, is this decision the right decision? Why? If I can't justify that, don't do it. Is using this tech tool the right tool right now? Why? If I can't justify it, don't use it. I think that makes the biggest impact in our life. If we do something simple like that every day, make sure you can justify why before you use it, and it will have a big impact on everything you do.
Excellent, excellent, Mr. Craig. I'm so inspired listening to you, and thank you so much for coming to my podcast today. You are the edu rockstar of the day today, and really privileged to have you as my guest. And I would like to say my thanks with this beautiful quote by Lord Buddha. If you only knew what I know about the power of giving, you would not let a single meal pass without sharing it in some way. And you are such a great giver to the society, to the education community. And it is just like a dream come true having you on my podcast today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. The pleasure is all mine. I really appreciate you chatting to me, amplifying my voice, and giving me the opportunity to share some media. I really appreciate it. Keep up the amazing work. Love the podcast, and I love connecting with you every day. Thank you so much.
You have just listened to the Edu Rockstar Talks podcast with your host Sumedha Sodhi. Subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. Head over to subscribe, rate, and leave a review for us. It is very much appreciated. Do not forget to join us next week for another exciting episode. Thank you for listening to us, and we will never